Those who are in the sanctuary this morning, and perhaps you on Zoom, can see that the sanctuary is set up a little differently today in honor of the equinox. Today, we will all be players in a greatly simplified version of the myth of Demeter and Persephone. This short play takes various versions of the ancient Greek myth and meets them somewhere in the middle. Everyone in the sanctuary will have a role to play, and I'll go through those in just a second. And those joining from home are invited to play 2 roles. So I, Lisa Fuller, am serving as your director and your narrator. And I just have a couple of director's notes to clarify. Who is my soul number 1? That's Ada or Iris? That's Ada. And Iris, you were soul number 2. Okay. And then Vanessa, soul number 3. And Todd, welcome to BUUF. He jumped right in with both feet and agreed to serve as soul number 4. All right. So the last thing I need is a boom operator. So every director has to have somebody who's going to assist with a microphone, right? So I need someone who's not. Are you playing a role? Yeah, you're a people. Okay, you can also be the boom operator. All right, so Liz is going to be our boom operator. So Liz, just listen along, and I'll direct you where to pass the mic, okay? Okay, so I am at the pulpit now. How's my sound? My sound is good. Okay, how's the sound? Better? Okay, very good. All right, so when you came into the sanctuary, those who are here in the building, if you sat in a chair that said that you were going to be a plant, raise your hand. Where are my plants? Okay. All right, when plants are mentioned in our play, just listen along to the script, and you are either going to be growing tall. Can you practice growing tall? Growing tall, or drooping sadly. Very good. Okay, and then those in the sanctuary who are people or souls, and those at home, I want you to serve as both people and souls, because we're going to need to fill in a little bit. So when the people on Earth, oh, and I need to orient you to our stage. So on the north side of the sanctuary, we have beautiful flowering earth. And on the south side of the sanctuary, we have dark, cold underworld. Our beautiful flowering earth is presided by our lovely Demeter, Nan, and our beautiful Persephone, Dorothy. And presiding on in our underworld side is the dark and grumpy Hades. Okay. All right. So when people on Earth or souls in the underworld, so where are my people? Okay, very good. And then where are my souls? Okay, very good. All right, so when people on Earth are mentioned, you will listen to the narrator and express either happiness or sadness. And souls, I'm sorry to say, you are always sad. And so you may demonstrate your sadness in any way that you would like. And you will also be cold, so you might be shivering. Okay, so Demeter is wearing the green scarf, and when she is mentioned, she will either be walking around, watering her gardens, or sadly missing her daughter. Hades is wearing this dark cape, and when he is mentioned, he will be grumpy and unwielding. Persephone, our beautiful maiden, wearing the purple scarf, and when she is mentioned, she will be joyous on earth, but, spoiler alert, sad in the underworld. So just pay attention to the narration and follow along. So our stage is the entire room. And on this side is the cold, dark underworld. And on that side is the warm and flowering earth. Once there was no winter. It was always summer. Plants grew. They grew and they swayed in the breezes. And Demeter, goddess of living things, happily watered the plants. Plants need to go through cycles, so they would droop. The plants droop, and then they would grow again right away. Demeter loved watching her plants grow and droop in their unceasing rhythms. She had many children and loved them all, but her favorite was the joyful and kind Persephone. Persephone loved to dance. She loved to dance and flow among the plants, and everyone who saw her, people, plants, and souls, Hades, everyone sighed at her beautiful face. She was kindness and light. Everyone saw that Persephone was kind and treated all things with respect. Everyone loved Persephone, but her mother Demeter loved her most of all. And they showed great love to each other. While Demeter watered and fed the many plants on earth so that they would grow tall, she watched proudly as Persephone danced and collected flowers. But Demeter was not the only one watching Persephone. From his opening in the underworld, Hades parted the air to scowl and watch Persephone too. He crept up to the edges of the underworld. Hades was not a happy fellow. How could he be? His underworld home was dark and cold and gloomy, and his job, taking lost souls from the earth down to the underworld, yes, those lost souls, so cold, and so sad, so sad. His job had little joy in it, so no wonder he was so grumpy. But Hades, watching Persephone and her beautiful joyfulness, fell in love, but he was still unhappy. He scowled at the unhappy lost souls shivering and crying around him. Oh. Finally, Hades crossed over to Earth. He left his chair and walked through the underworld. He wanted to convince Persephone to return to the underworld with him. Persephone was collecting her flowers in the sunshine when she saw Hades among the growing plants. She greeted him and wanted to know who he was. Hello, who are you? Hades gazed silently at Persephone. He didn't have the words to speak at that time. The only thing he knew was how to take souls to the underworld, whether they wanted to go or not. So he did the only thing he understood. He wrapped his cold, clammy arms around Persephone and dragged her to his underworld home. In the underworld, Persephone looked around. She saw the sad, shivering souls there. Their sad faces made her become sad and frightened. Meanwhile, on Earth, Demeter sensed something was wrong. Persephone was missing. She stopped watering her plants. She searched the horizon for the sight of her daughter, wanting to be reassured that she was mistaken. But she was not mistaken. She knew in her heart Hades had taken her beautiful Persephone to the underworld. Demeter collapsed, missing her daughter. She wailed in sadness, missing her daughter and calling her by name.
Oh, Persephone,
Her daughter was gone.
Persephone.
Neglected by Demeter, the plants lost their leaves and drooped. They withered, they died. With the goddess of living things sad and distracted, the sun hid its face and the earth became cold. People on earth grew cold and shivered, and they were so miserable. They moaned as they began to get hungry. The plants continued to droop. There was no food, and Demeter continued to hang her head sadly. Her only concern was that her daughter return to her. Persephone cried and cried. She was sad and frightened in the dark, cold underworld. When Persephone had no more tears, she lifted her head and looked around. The unhappy souls of people who had died were all looking at her and still feeling so scared and sad and cold. Despite her own fears, Persephone felt sorry for the souls and tried to reassure them while they cried.
Don't cry, it'll be all right.
The souls sniffed away their tears, and soul number one said,
"How did someone like you get down here?"
Persephone replied,
Hades brought me, and I don't know how to leave.
soul number two, Iris,
"Would it help to eat? I have some black dirt."
she offered the only thing she had, just some black dirt from the underworld. But Persephone said,
No, thank you. I'm not hungry.
soul number three, Vanessa,
Tell us what it is like on Earth now.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
Persephone told the souls about the flowers in the field, and they all sighed with happiness. They remembered Earth and could see its beauty in Persephone.
Oh, how I wish we could all return to Earth.
Then Hades came walking through. The souls had to shift to get out of his way. No one wanted to be in the gaze of Hades. But Persephone stood up tall and told Hades she wanted to go home.
Hades, I must go. You must take me home.
Hades did not want Persephone to go, though. He wanted to marry her.
No, I like you here. Marry me, Persephone. Be my queen of the underworld. I know I can make you happy.
How can you make me happy in this dark place? There's no sun, no flowers. I miss my mother on Earth.
Let me try. You make me happy.
You don't look happy.
Well, you make me less unhappy then.
Hades tried to turn his mouth into a smile as he walked away. Persephone looked around. She was concerned about those sad, shivering souls, but she did not want to be in this cold, dark place. She faced Hades and demanded to go home.
I must go home. You have no reason to keep me here.
But I want you here with me, Persephone. You are beautiful and kind and good. You bring sunshine to my dark home.
That is all well and good, but I don't.
That's all well and good, but I really don't belong here.
Perhaps if you ate something.
Persephone, expecting more dirt. Hades held out his hand and offered a pomegranate. Persephone was hungry and the pomegranate was beautiful, so she accepted the food and she ate 4 of the delicious seeds. Then she remembered her home on earth and pushed the pomegranate away.
That is all well and good, but I really don't belong here. No, I must go home.
Hades was sad that Persephone wanted to leave, but he knew that because she had eaten the pomegranate seeds, that even if she left, she would have to return. Persephone didn't know this, and her heart was softening for Hades. She tried to reassure him.
It's not that you haven't been good to me, Hades. It's just,
I know. The underworld is just not your home. Nobody ever wants to stay here. Go if you must.
So Hades allowed Persephone to use the opening to return to Earth. She parted the air and looked around for Demeter, her mother. And when they saw each other, they rejoiced and hugged happily. Demeter was so happy to see her daughter. She cried, "My daughter has returned. May all the earth rejoice." And the plants began to turn green again. And they grew and the people cheered. Yay! Demeter whispered, "I'm so glad you're home, Persephone. That was such a horrid thing for Hades to do." Persephone, though, stepped away from her mother and thought of those she had left behind. She could still hear the unhappy souls moaning and crying, and she wanted so much to help them. "I'm glad to be home, Mother, but I must return." Demeter was horrified. She did not want her to leave. No, must stay here. "You don't belong in such an ugly place," she declared. Well, Persephone told her mother, "The souls do not deserve to be in such an ugly place either. They need me, Mother. They're losing hope and I can help them." Demeter congratulated Persephone on becoming a wise woman.
Good for you, Persephone. Good for you.
She said, "Stay with me for a time, only a short while, and then if you still feel you must go, you can return." So Persephone left to go back to Hades and to help the lost souls for 1/3 of each year. While she is gone, her mother Demeter becomes sad and stops watering the plants, and they droop again. The season turns to winter and the earth is cold and dark until her daughter returns in the spring. And in the underworld, Persephone's kindness and love helps the lost souls that were once bound, but now have hope of being free and living again. Let's give ourselves and our players a big hand.